Bon dia, welcome to Exploring Timor-Leste, the podcast that talks about Southeast Asia's best kept travel secret. I'm your host Jonty, and I'll share first-hand insights, expert interviews and practical travel tips. Whether you're a traveller, a culture lover or just curious about places rarely covered in the mainstream, you're in the right place. Let's explore Timor-Leste. Today's episode is on the beautiful municipality of Bobonaro. This is at the western end of Timor-Leste, bordering with Indonesian West Timor. Some of the best known sites in Bobonaro include Balabo, an historic site where in 1975 journalists were killed by the invading Indonesian army. Its main city, Maliana, is one of the largest in the country. The Morobo hot springs are an interesting destination for the adventurous, and it's one of the best places in Timor-Leste to see scenic rice fields, particularly around Atabai and Maliana. From Dili, head west along the coastal road and then heads into Bobonaro. It is a very scenic drive, and it is a generally well-maintained road up to the Indonesian border. It then starts heading inland and gets significantly rougher, so a four-wheel drive vehicle or some skills motorbike would be recommended for exploring past Balabo. There's about half an hour of bad road to Balabo itself, so that is doable on a scooter. Now, Balabo is home to the second oldest fort in Timor-Leste, which is over 350 years old. The fort was built by the Portuguese to protect during the ongoing power struggle with the Dutch over the control of this part of Southeast Asia. The fort has now been converted into one of the best places to stay in the country. It has good food and an infinity pool, which I think is the only infinity pool in Timor, and it offers beautiful views around the surrounding landscape. It's also home to the Balabo Veterans Museum, a small but very informative museum that opened in 2022. I highly recommend visiting if you're in Balabo. Now, across the road from the fort is the Balabo Flag House. This is named for the Australian flag painted on the outside. This was home to 5 journalists, so 2 Australians, 2 British and a New Zealander, who were in Timor-Leste, or then East Timor, in 1975 to report on the attacks on the border between West Timor and East Timor. When the Indonesian army invaded, they were murdered, and their murders were covered up by senior soldiers. It took years for the truth to come out, and no one has ever been charged for their murder. The Flag House is now it's a small museum, it's a community centre. It has a shop, a coffee stall and a learning centre. Just by the fort and the flag house is also the Lerai statue, which was a statue of a local ruler built during the Indonesian occupation. In the base of the statue monument is the number 27, as the Indonesians consider Timor-Leste to be their 27th province. Balabo also has an attractive church at the western end of town. Outside is a rather large I Love Balabo sign, which is quite photogenic. And then if you head into the outskirts of Balabo, there's an impressive man-made cave with a statue of the Virgin Mary. And then on the hill above, there's a statue of Jesus on the cross and expansive views of the Balabo area. And to reach that, you walk past 14 stations of the cross. There is a natural grunta, so grunta means cave. Many of the ones of Virgin Mary are man-made for the Virgin Mary in the cave. There's a natural caves close to Balabo, which are home to stalactites and bats. Only about 2k from Balabo, but they're very hard to find, as I tried. You really need a local guide to show you around. Now, the drive to Balabo is very scenic, and one of my favourite spots along the way was the town of Atabai. Now, when you first drive through it, it may not be obvious what there is in Atabai, but if you stop and take a little bit of time, there's some fantastic scenes to be had. So you don't really notice it from the road, but when you're driving, say, south, on your left-hand side are actually huge rice fields. The best place to see those is from the rooftop of the D2 Uma Cafe, which is an excellent cafe. They've got really good drinks and some food, and they've got a nice viewing area deck on top of the cafe, which has fantastic views of the rice fields. Really highly recommend stopping there for a beverage and the view. And then to your right-hand side as you're driving through Atabai, you can't see it from the road necessarily, but there is a really impressive stretch of beach, and there are a few beach access points. It's a good place to break up your journey if you're heading through into Bobonaro. And the main town in Bobonaro, and one of the largest cities in Timor-Leste, is Maliana. The road to Maliana is being worked on, but it is pretty rough still. You basically go up and over the hills through Balabo and then down the other side and across to Maliana. It's a large agricultural hub, particularly for rice production, and there are some beautiful rice fields in central Maliana. It's quite a spread out city. It's best explored with your own transport, as there seem to be surprisingly few microlets or tom-toms compared to other places I visited in Timor-Leste. But as I say, there are beautiful rice fields. Probably the best viewing point is if you take the back road that goes between the Protestant church, which is a bright yellow church, through around the back of the city centre, then there's some really good views that way. There's also an impressive Santa Cruz Catholic Church, which has a huge outdoor covered area at the eastern end of Maliana, and nearby is the main cemetery, which has fantastic views of Mount Lolaco. Now, Lolaco, it's probably one of the most prominent mountains in Bobonaro. You get a great view of it from Maliana facing towards it, and as you head through further into Bobonaro, you get a real view of its side on, and it's a really jagged edge mountain. It's nearly 2,000 meters tall. It looks absolutely terrifying. I know local guides, they used to take people up there, and now they've stopped taking people, as are a number of fatalities, which is understandable when you look at the terrain on offer. Maliana is quite a nice place just to walk around. The people are very friendly. They don't see a lot of tourists there. It's a very kind of welcoming experience. Maliana is at least 3.5 hours drive from Dili, and then a further probably 1.5 to 2 hours further on from Maliana are the Morobo hot springs. So they're not the easiest place to get to, but they are the best known hot springs in the country. They're originally developed by the Portuguese, who had a resort complex built around the pools, but they fell into disrepair. In 2016, the whole complex was redeveloped, but not a lot of maintenance appears to have taken place since then. They're fed by natural hot spring water, which produces around 2,000 litres of water per minute. There is 3 pools which are kind of part of the complex, and there's this amazing kind of cascading waterfall of hot water just by them. And then if you actually go for a bit of an explore in the bush, maybe 10-15 minutes away, you can get down to the river where you can see more of the natural hot springs. Now, they are quite amazing hot springs, but as I said, there hasn't been a lot of maintenance. There's not a lot of facilities there. The toilets are out of action. A lot of the infrastructure has fallen into disrepair. So they are definitely an adventure tourist destination. Other than some local kids, you're probably going to have the place to yourself. The other well-known place in Bobonaro is Batugari, which is the home to the main border crossing between Timor-Leste and Indonesia, although there isn't much there apart from the border. There are the remains of a 1655 Portuguese fort, but they're now occupied by the border police, so you can't go inside them, but you can see the walls from the outside. On the road between there and Balabol, there are many traditional Timorese thatched buildings, including Umalulik. Bobonaro is probably one of the most varied and scenic municipalities, I think, in Timor-Leste. I did a fantastic hike from Bobonaro through into Amira, and there's some stunning scenery, but it's not the easiest to access. Once you get beyond the coastal road, as I say, the quality of the roads can be quite variable. The easiest place as a tourist to visit is Balabo, and there is definitely enough there to fill up a day. There are Balabo trails, and Balabo Fort Hotel can organise guides to do walks around the area. There's a mountain biking route you can do, and then there's bigger hikes further up into the mountains in Balabo. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a flavour for the municipality of Bobonaro. Thank you so much for listening to Exploring Timor-Leste. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a rating or a review. It really helps more people discover the show. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email at exploringtimorleste@gmail.com. Until next time, obrigado ho adeus.